Independence Day coming up. So why don't we start out by honoring those who have served? Anybody who has served in any armed forces, please stand. Please stand. Keep standing. Do not sit down. Keep standing. Do not sit down. I have a poem for you. A salute to our soldiers. Author unknown. I see you standing among them all, standing so strong, proud, and tall. The world looks at you but does not see everything you sacrifice to keep us free. I'm here to say, to let you know that you are loved, even if it doesn't show. Your fight for our hopes, dreams, and liberty, you fight for our freedom, a hero to be. We want you to know you are never alone, for we are waiting for you to come home. But the hardest thing for a person to be is you, a soldier, fighting to keep us free. Thank you. Well, all right. So let's, Independence Day led me to look at some great quotes. I have some great quotes for you today. Going to start out with this one. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now, my talk is called Storms in the Creative Process. What a storm the revolution was. Right? Here were these extraordinary men making this extraordinary stand to create something extraordinary we call the United States. It hadn't been done before. People ruling themselves without a monarch? These people must have been giants. Were they? Let's see. George Washington didn't wear a wig. I don't know if you knew this. Every day before going out to battle, he'd have his hair styled. And it had to look just right, or he wouldn't go out to battle. It turns out he used to blow such hissy fits and throw such temper tantrums that one of his commanders is quoted as saying that he had never heard so many curse words in so a little bit of time. We have John Hancock. Turned out he was a smuggler. And him and Paul Revere and John Adams used to get together at this tavern in Boston to get drunk and talk about what liberty would feel like. Who else do we have? I've got Benjamin Franklin. He thought that as long as he walked around naked for a half hour every morning, he was as clean as if he took a bath. And then he wrote a little booklet on farting called Fart Proudly. Oh, and John Adams. This is my favorite, John Adams. Well, I got a couple more for you. I don't want to forget that Thomas Jefferson, who wrote the first draft of the Declaration of Independence, originally had in it a part on abolishing slavery, but was so afraid of what the others might think, he pulled it out. And he liked his vice president's wife way more than he liked his vice president. So there's lots more letters to Abigail than there were to John Adams himself. John Adams, once he became president, asked people to call him Your Highness. Now, why am I telling you these things? Because they were not extraordinary men. They were ordinary men doing extraordinary things. And that's the point. It doesn't take you being extraordinary to do something extraordinary. It just takes an ordinary person willing to stand up for something extraordinary. Because certainly the Declaration of Independence and the war for freedom was extraordinary. They took on the British Empire. These guys who are getting drunk in this bar saying, we're going to take on the British Empire, the biggest empire in the world, and we're going to see what happens. And there were lots of people in the country at that time that said, you're crazy to do this. You are nuts. We're all going to be killed. And they said, no, I think we can do this. But we're certainly going to give it our best shot. Now that's something. Ordinary men doing extraordinary things. I have some more quotes for you. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that one day, even in the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. What an amazing storm that rose out of, right? People died. Kids in Kent shot and killed. People down in Mississippi hung. One black man was dragged behind a truck for miles until his skin just came off him. But they said, no, we're standing for this. Was Martin Luther King an extraordinary man? Have you heard about some of the things he's done in his life? I'm not going to go into those here. He was an ordinary man who made an extraordinary stance. And because of him and others like him, we have the Bill of Rights. So it's ordinary people like yourselves who can stand up. Stand up when you don't have a job right now, but you know you can get one. Stand up when you have a disease and the doctors are saying, no, you're not going to make it. Or you're going to be this way or that, or this disease is going to do this to you or that. Stand up when your partner says, I'm leaving. And you know that there's still a greater love for you in your life. It doesn't take an extraordinary person. It takes an extraordinary action. It takes your willingness to step beyond what it is you think you are and what you might have. Forrest Gump, one of my favorite movies. There's this scene in it where the lieutenant with no legs is strapping himself to the head of the mast during this huge storm. And it's just hammering him. And he's up there laughing. And all he has to say is this all you got? And I look at that and I go, that could be us. Instead of lying down and playing dead and going, woe is me, I can't take it anymore, this is so hard. There were so many times during that revolution that they didn't think they were going to win. That Washington was so pissed off at his men. And yet somehow they kept rallying. They rallied when they thought all was lost. Not because they were extraordinary, but because they were willing to do something extraordinary. So why do we do that? Why do we put our heroes up on pedestals? Why does we think that the only way to get something done is if somebody, is if a superhero out of Marvel will come out and save us? Well, because then we don't have to be responsible. Then we don't have to, then we can say, oh, we just need a savior. I just wasn't big enough to do it. These men, they were bigger. 2,000 years ago, there was this simple carpenter who had some simple things to say. And then what grew out of that was this whole thing making him an exception. Why? Because if we don't make him an exception, then we have to love our neighbors and our enemies. We have to care about the people in Syria and Afghanistan and then actually do something about it. We have to care about the homelessness in our own town. But if we think about Jesus as an exception, then we don't have to. Because you can say, well, I'm not Christ. Jesus can take care of that. That's not me. And yet, my guess is he was as ordinary as you and I, making an extraordinary stance about what life can be like if we are willing to live in that place of knowing. Our thing in this teaching is that we believe. We believe so deeply we know that if you have a dream, then you absolutely have the resources to lift yourself up. Storms are fascinating things, And I hate it when somebody says to somebody else in this teaching, how did you create that? Because storms happen. Now, am I saying that that to have a creative moment requires a storm? No, I want to be clear, I am not saying that to have a creative moment requires a storm. What I'm saying is that inside of every storm is a creative moment. That's why that man could sit up on I know it's just a movie, but it's just such a great, great metaphor. Him up on that mast being creamed by the weather, being creamed by a storm, and just going, is this all you got? That could be us. That could be you. That could be all of us. Is this all you got? Because I'm bigger than this. I'm more than this. I'm just an ordinary person, and I'm more because we're God. Can you feel what I'm saying here? Are you with me on this? The people who created this country just knew they were more, knew they could do more than their ordinariness, even though they were just regular people. Martin Luther King knew he could do more. Gandhi, little guy who just said, no, I'm not going to take this anymore. And I'm not going to be violent about it. I'm just not going to take it anymore. Talk about storms and getting creative in those storms, every storm in your life. And the bigger the storm, just so you know, the bigger the creativity that can come out of it. So instead of trying to fight the storm, welcome it. Now, I'm not saying have one on purpose. Let me be clear. I am not saying have a storm on purpose. I am saying if you've got one going on, welcome it. Go, okay, this must mean, since this storm is going on, that there's a creative moment in here for me where I get to create something really bigger and better than I can even imagine right now. That's the new thing for me. This is what I'm doing. Is I'm like, okay, there's a storm going on right now. I can't see how this works, but I know there's a creative moment in here someplace. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to create this now. You know, that's what we have here. Thank you for giving the opportunity. Gratitude. Like Edmund was singing about. Thank you. Can you say that with me? Thank you. Yes. Thank you to the people who took the time to create this country. Thank you for all the people throughout the 200 years we've been around who were willing to stand up and say, I'm going to fight to keep this country, this freedom. Thank you to all the people who have stood up to make us better people because they were willing to do that. You know, I am so grateful for Mother Teresa. I am so grateful for Martin Luther King because I am so grateful to Jesus because they give me the opportunity to see what's possible for ourselves when we're willing to be more than who we think we are. I got a last quote here for you. Let's see where I put it. There we go. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has. Margaret Mead. It is the only thing that ever has. Be thoughtful. Be willing to stand up. Be willing to know yourself as larger than who you are. Let's stand together in this because this is beautiful. And this is a great time in history. You know, here we are at this great point in history. There's a storm going on. What an incredible opportunity for creation. Thank you. I love you. Thank you. Okay, if our prosperity acceptors will step forward, take out what you're going to give and hold it in your hand. Don't crumple it up. Hold it in your hand. Hold it like you know this is God. This is the God energy. And what we're doing with this is we're putting it out so that it returns multiplied abundantly. What we're doing is putting it out so that we can receive something larger. We're getting that flow moving, right? That's what we're doing here by hold. So hold it in your hand and say our abundant affirmation together. God is the source of all supply. Money is God in action. What we give, we receive multiplied. Abundantly. All that God is, I am.
You are the face of God. I hold you in my heart. You are a part of me. You are the face of God. You are the face of God. I hold you in my heart. You are a part of me. You are the face of God.